be honest, I don't really have a reaction. At this juncture, it's just factual. This is happening to teams where the whole team goes out. It's like I said last night. It seems to be happening to most of the teams, and not many of them are able to maintain a certain level of players so that you can keep playing like we're doing. So, in the grand scheme of things, it means we don't play Saturday. It happens to come at a time when we're in a bye week the following week. So my concern is just for us, we had one game before. Okay, so, we played a week ago. We played again. We had one little disruption there with Fresno State. This one puts us in a little bit where we're not going to compete for, 11 days. And, that concerns me a little bit. So we'll have to, in our preparation, I don't know, come up with some alternatives if that's possible. But the main thing is, that's important because we're going to be getting these guys back, and we got to get them back in the fold. And like I said last night, it's about being a team, and you need to practice together. You need to be together. You need to do that. So, that'll be our focus, just sort of getting those guys back and hopefully maintain our competitive edge that we seem to have right now.
Yeah, from a timing standpoint, is it kind of beneficial that now you won't have to play another game without all of those guys?
Well, I'm hopeful. Like I said, it's always it's a little catch-22 because I just said, the competitive edge that's required to keep that fire burning, so that's on the one hand. The other hand is getting back to full strength. I'm not 100% certain right now with AJ, with different things, variables, when that will actually be. And then I know at some point the league is going to come through at some point and start to say, how do we make up postponed games? And I don't know what that's going to look like, so there's a lot of variables at play. So that's why, again, I think we got to, one, get our guys back and concentrate on, making sure they're in real good playing shape, and, whether that's legs and health overall, and then just the togetherness of how we are playing right now. And, like anything, Brent, we're not at this juncture in this process. It's not about sort of let's play the games. Like I've said, it's not about that. It's about growing. It's about getting better for us. And, it's about having the team together so we can do that, because that's really what we're doing. We're working to improve, to get better. You need your team to do that. You obviously need the competition to do that. And that's what, we're just going to try to focus on.
Yeah, and when you say exploring alternatives, are you just talking about doing different things in practice, or would you potentially try to find?
Yeah. No, I'm exploring all alternatives. I know if there is a hole somewhere in here where we can do that. And, I'm looking into what the NCAA rules are, in terms of another opponent. Does that have to be a countable game? I know there's these rules about number of contests and all those things, but depending on how this plays out with these variables that are being discussed, if it is going to be until next Saturday, then I think we do have to look into that for that reason of sort of competing and not just practicing.
Right now, trying to consider opponents. Are you on the phone? What?
Yeah, I think what you got to do is you just look out there. My Dave Metzendorf handles a lot of the scheduling, so he's just looking around, at other people's schedules to see who's got the similar thing. It's going on all over the country. So who are those teams? Obviously, geography, a lot of things go into it, but we just found out for certain that the game was postponed, so we're just starting to get on it, and we'll put all the facts in there to see, what's the best way to move forward.
Okay, thanks. When you kind of look at someone like Carter, who hasn't played much but had to step in last night and did well in the game, just what have you thought of his performance, and other guys that have had to fill those roles, like guys are out?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some way, in some respects, it's like any situation. And I try to do this, and you have to do it as the coach of Air Force. I try to find advantages in the disadvantages. You got to try to find the positives in a situation that might not be so positive. And, in this case, as it relates to Carter, Carter, probably would have been getting minutes earlier if he hadn't, broke his wrist and when we started practicing, say, second week of practice. When that occurred, that really helped Jake Heidebretter poke his head out and come along. So again, this is where the team things come in, and looking at situations, not, from the negative side, but, okay. So now this situation arises and it's not the best of it, but you know what it did? It put me in position where, here's Carter's opportunity. And I've talked to Carter prior to that, when it was leading up and he wasn't getting in, and, we're non-conference, we're 7-1. And I just said, hey, listen, you got to work hard, and I will put you in when you deserve to be put in. You know what I mean? I'm going to put you in because you're going to help the team. And as he kept working, this occurred, and he was ready. He played against Utah State. He played 20 minutes, 0 turnovers, 5 rebounds. I know he's a good shooter. He came out last night, plays tough, plays hard, no turnovers, makes shots, plays very good defense. So, again, that's what we're looking for here, and I've said that to our guys. Our players know exactly what it is I'm looking for. They know exactly the behavior, the daily, everyday things that we look for. There's crystal clarity on that when it comes for our players. And if they go about their business that way, what they find is, you know what? You get rewarded, and most importantly, when your number gets called, you're ready. And Carter's been a good prime example of that. So I think in the long run, that's going to help our program. And in some respects, you can look at Ryan Corner. Lucas goes down. Ryan's been working. Same thing. He's very eager. He's attentive. All he does is listen to what we and I ask him to do and instruct him to do, and sometimes obviously demand him to do. And he does it. He's got an eagerness and a willingness to do it. And when you're like that, you know what? Throw him in there. And last night I thought Ryan did a good job. And all that bodes well for what we're trying to do here, which is build a program, stick with the process, get better, get tougher, get older, and become the kind of program that's competed in these first 2 games in league the way that we have to keep competing to make that become our habit.
And on that note, I know it's disappointing when you're so close to taking down a ranked opponent, but what are the positives you're taking from CSU last night?
Well, I mean, the positives are just, like I said, a lot of people texted me after the game, and, my response was, I can watch and coach a team like that every day, all day. I mean, if that's who we're going to be, which is what we're striving to be, and we compete that hard, that way, that together, with an understanding in the head going with that sort of, physical toughness and competitive edge, that's all we want here. And you know what? That's what I mean about the clarity that I know our guys have. That's what we're looking for, guys who are like that. Guys that love to play basketball, guys that step out there every day, and I mean in practice, and they're working to become like that. That's what I've seen from our guys under, adverse circumstances here. And if we can maintain that, build upon that, and obviously get, the full complement back, that's what we're going to try to do here through this, sort of unknown time where games are being played, they're not, and we just got to concentrate on that, what we're doing in that regard, and not concern ourselves with these other outside things.
Can you elaborate on what you meant about AJ's situation? Is it just the virus with him, or was there something else?
No, it's just the whole, 5 days, the whole isolation, 10 days, 5 days, the second 5 days, sort of resolving all those sort of parts of that process. I know that's ongoing across the country. It's different for different leagues. It's ongoing in our league. And obviously, when you're talking about a 5-day period and a 10-day period, any leeway, goes a long way when you're saying we're playing a game on this date or we're playing a game on that date. He's fine. He's doing well, so just trying to get those sort of answers as we're looking for, other answers scheduling-wise.
Yeah.
Coach, would you say this team is ahead of schedule right now? I mean, the 8-5, a real possibility at 9-4 if you pull off that upset win. You're down so many players, and you still put together quite a performance against a ranked opponent. Are you obviously? I'm sure you're impressed with what you see from your guys, but would you consider this ahead of schedule in the process?
I mean, I definitely would off of last year. When usually when you take over a program and you're trying to, build your program and put the things in place that are most important. The things like I just talked about, the clarity that this group has about what it is I and we are looking for. You couldn't do those things last year under the circumstances in that environment and what was going on. So in that regard, for us to be able to say last April, when the season's over, go from then until now to see the growth, and I've said this before, it's not just the freshmen, to seeing those guys out there playing the way they've played and competed. We knew we were going to play them. You got to give those guys a lot of credit, but you got to give the upperclassmen credit who have sort of stayed with it and been part of this team aspect of it. My whole thing has just been about the team. It's not about any individuals. It's about how you show up every day, how you really, live sort of what it is we want from you. And, Cam Vanderswag's a prime example of that. I mean, the kid's done a phenomenal job, and he's done it just by doing what we've asked, listening, having that kind of discipline and toughness. And it's got to be a staple of this program. So, I think when you look at the last two league games, coupled with the non-conference, in that regard, I think you can say we are ahead when you compete the way we did against Utah State undermanned, and then back that up again yesterday being even more undermanned. So 2 games in this league doesn't make a habit. But that's something now that I can really stress to our guys, and I have been already. It's just about making that become our habit, doing that again and again. It's not about the outcome. It's not about the result. It's about building that habit, and that's our process. And, I can tell from watching our guys that, they're listening. And, the more they do that, the more they listen, then like I said last night after the game, that's primary. And when you're like that, then you really get to be able to get to the technical things, which our guys now know, through experience against a ranked team. Man, we get 9-10 turnovers instead of 14. They know that. They know it now. It's not the coach saying that. They know from their own experience and how hard they've competed that if we can get to that point, that's going to go a long way, right, in terms of producing that result. But it's about digging in and making sure your habit of competing so hard every possession all game is primary, and our guys are doing that right now, and we got to make sure we continue that way.
And I'm curious, has there been any conversation about, Colorado State coming to Clune Arena is only about 17 days away now? Anybody thinking about, not thinking too far ahead, but circling that date on the calendar and thinking, we got another crack at these guys at our place now?
Well, I think, again, when you go through this the way that we're doing it, when you watch our guys, and this is just me personally, when I can watch them and see them play that way, and they know they're playing that way, that's where you start to build inside you, individually and collectively, most importantly, what you just said. You start to build that in yourself. You started to build it collectively within the program that this is how we're going to play. And you start to say, okay, I'm only looking at the next game, but in league play, we all know that in normal times you get everybody twice. You get them in their building, you get them in your building. And that's, again, where if you really stress these, that competitiveness, that competitive edge that's required, and that's who you are, then that's when you produce what you're talking about, and those are your players who think that way, act that way, and that's how you get to where if they are coming here in 17 days and we keep doing what we're doing, then we've made that be a big game because of how we're going about our business, and it's not really about them, and it's just about us being ready to take advantage of any opportunity that presents itself to us.